IVM.
Hey there, thanks for tuning in to Simblified. This week, we are going to rebroadcast an episode that we actually recorded last year with Vijay Nair, who is the CEO and founder of Only Much Louder Entertainment, a company that I kind of work with. We spoke about the NH7 Weekender, why he started it, and it's an absolutely fascinating interview. And since the 8th edition of the Pune Weekender is happening from 8th to 10th December in Mahalakshmi Lawns in the city, we thought it'd be a good time to put this out. It's an absolutely fascinating interview. It talks about how the idea of conceptualizing Weekender came about. It talks about Vijay's early stories of this band, Pentagram, which is absolutely hilarious. We had a great chat about it last year, and a lot of what he said actually remains relevant even today. So yeah, check it out. It's fun, and hey, I hope to see you at Weekender then.
Welcome to another episode of Simblified.
Somehow this thing just keeps on going, Naren, without stopping.
Yes, where we try to demystify stuff, and sometimes we succeed, sometimes we fail, but this time we are very sure we're going to demystify a lot of really...
Sometimes when we run out of things to talk about, we invite people who are smarter than us on the podcast, which is
not very difficult. It's not like we are Godel and Einstein.
Yeah. So, Naren, you would know that I like independent music quite a bit.
Yes.
So, I've been a very faithful attendee of the scene, as it's called. For a very long time, from gigs. Ever since I've come to Bombay in 2009, I've been going to gigs all over the place. And one of my fondest memories was when a website that I used to follow for a long time, NH7, decided to host a 3-day music fest in Pune. And that to me was extremely, extremely novel. Till then,
I kind of remember, when we used to all hang around in Anand Ramchandran's house at that time, and Chuck was all agog and jumping up and down, and he wanted all of us to come. I didn't go, but I don't know, some of the others did.
So I ensured that I had a work meeting in Pune that Friday so that I could... I could go for this. I even tried convincing my client to come along. Alas, that never happened. But yeah, so today I am proud to say I work with that company, and I'm even proud to say that today we have on the podcast the guy who's made all this happen, Vijay Nair. Vijay, welcome to Simplified. Thank you for taking time out and coming on to a little show.
Happy to be here and kind of hopefully talk about what actually goes behind making the festival, apart from just talking about the lineup all the time.
Absolutely, and that's something that we want to focus on. If I may ask, and you've probably been asked this question several times before, what inspired you to start NH7 Weekender?
In one word, it's actually Glastonbury. That's the first really large music festival that I went to. The first music festival I ever been to was, of all places, in Estonia, when this is back in 2005 or 6. I used to just manage bands at that point of time, and I had just discovered internet.
Are the fans stoned?
Oh God, is that the direction?
That is the general level of.
All right.
This is why we give people a 15-minute break, so that they can choose whether to continue or not. You've noticed you have placed you furthest away from the door as well.
If that's the direction we're going, then let's go for that direction.
Wow. Challenge accepted.
So it was this is the time when I was managing Pentagram, and I used to just kind of mail every festival in the world and just saying, oh, we've got a band, we'd like to come and play. I think I remember in that 1 month I mailed some 200 odd festivals, and one guy responded from the Sundance Music Festival in Estonia. It was hilarious because I remember going to Vishal's studio and we were sitting there, and the first thing we actually did was find an atlas to find where Estonia was, because we had absolutely no idea where it was, and there was no Google Maps or anything at that point of time to find it. So we literally had to find it, that it was one of the CIS countries, and then we didn't know how to get a visa. So we kind of we figured that out, and we landed up in Delhi to get a visa, and we met the ambassador or the consul general, who was the Sardarji, because some of these smaller European countries, they don't have proper embassies, so they just, whoever is like a big businessman who's from that country, they just make them the honorary consul general sort of a thing. So I think we were only 4 people applying for a visa, five of us applying for a visa to go there. And I went in and I walked in and I saw what a music festival is for the first time. There was about 5 stages, and it was all electronic music. Pentagram was headlining that festival, by the way. So they really kind of fell in love with the band, and we fell in love with the country. It was incredible. And I think a year or two later is when I went to Glastonbury the first time. And then, of course, that was Glastonbury, I mean, if you have never been to a music festival and if you're going to go to Glastonbury, it's a city. It's not really just a festival in that sense. It's maybe about 900 acres of land. It's 200,000 people. They built the festival for about 11 months. It was overwhelming to kind of really go see that. And I think that's when the idea was kind of planted in terms of I had to do something like that. And I think that was 2006. But by the time I did NH7, it was 2010. So it took... from it kind of being planted as a seed in terms of this is what I want to do. I think it took about good 4 years. I tried actually to put together a festival in 2008. But 2008, 9, 10, it took me about 2.5 years to just get that entire thing together. Although the first festival I actually worked on was in 2002, which it was 3 days, about 15-16 bands. It was called Alive in Pune. We did a lot of that stuff, except we didn't treat it like a festival.
Like a festival.
Concerts,
just a bunch of concerts.
Yeah, it's the first time I think we went all the way and kind of figured out how to put something together, and that's where the idea of NH7 really kind of kicked off.
That's fantastic. Why NH7? I know this, but for the benefit,
it was we wanted a 3-letter domain name, and it was available. So
is that simple?
Many of these are actually that simple. Actually, many of these...
It has nothing to do with National Highway number 7. Which is the National Highway number 7?
It is... NH7 used to be something that used to go from, if I'm not mistaken, Kanyakumari to Kashi. And that's what... So it was
interesting enough,
it was the longest highway in India at a point of time. Now it's broken into NH44 and a bunch of other highways right now. But I was driving from Pune to Bombay at that point, and we were going to start this website, and there was Gaurav, Shreyas and Arjun, that was a team we put together to start this. And I was kind of driving from Pune, and it just kind of struck me. I was looking at some of the milestones, and I remember somewhere in my subconscious I'd read about NH7 being the longest highway, and so I just called Shreyas, I think at that point, said, is the domain name available? He said yes. So let's book it, because finding a 3-letter domain name was just it was just insane at that point of time. Because one thing I always knew is once you have a name, you can always build a story around it, and people will believe whatever you tell them. So it's
which is very profound, actually.
Then I've made a bunch of different stories about how it stands for music across the country. A lot of people actually think it is NH7. I'll tell you an incredible fact that not many people know. So one of our major competitors thought that we were going to do this festival all over the country. So we'll go somewhere else, it'll become NH8, NH9. So they actually went and trademarked everything. From NH1 to NH6 and NH8 to NH20. And the plans, except that we never really planned to do that. No matter where the festival went, it was going to be NH7. So there is somebody in the city who's sitting with trademarks of NH1, NH2, NH3, NH4, NH5. So it's really funny. I found that out a few years later.
And somewhere Nitin Gadkari is wondering who's booking all these.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't think Nitin Gadkari is wondering that right now, but yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, I am just bursting with questions regarding how did you manage to sell the concept? You went to Glastonbury, you got sold on it, but this is something, and India, I don't know if we are especially hidebound, but we tend to be very, very slow at taking up new concepts. You're very reluctant, very conservative, don't want to. So how did you get people to believe in you?
That is way more profound than what actually happened. I started the company 2001 so by this point of time when I was pitching, I had 8-9 years of at least experience of being in the scene. So if you can really look at about how you go about the festival, you need to kind of convince artists to play, you need to convince sponsors to be a part of it, and then you need to convince people to buy tickets. These are the 3 people that you're involved with. Artists was not even a problem because I knew everybody personally at that point.
You were already managing.
I was managing a whole bunch of bands, and the first year all the artists who played were friends. That's pretty much it. Including the international headliners were just artists managed by my friends, because nobody else would play a festival that they hadn't heard of, and it was just easy to do that. When it came to sponsors, that was the biggest challenge. That's why it took 2 years, because nobody really bought into it, because in hindsight, while it seems like it was an obvious thing to do, nobody bought into the concept that you could actually have different genres of music in a festival. Because the way brands think is, they'll give you ridiculous briefs like, oh, I want to own electronic music, I want to own rock music, I want to own this, own this or whatever. And my insight was, from the time I started listening to music, which was 2001, which is when I started working as well, because I had no music in my life at all when I was growing up, zero. and which incidentally happened to be the first band I got into.
Well done.
Also. So when I'd kind of really figured out that most people just listen to all kinds of music. That's majority of the people. It took me a while to get out of my echo chamber of people who were just scenesters and who would only say, because if I had gone by that, this festival would be extremely different. Like many other festivals who try to start and they just go after one thing because they have 100 friends, they all listen to it and they think 10,000 other people listen to that, and that's not true. So we basically, I knew that most people listen to all kinds of stuff. And when I went to Glastonbury, one of the things that happened to me is I walked into all these stages. I had never heard that kind of music or bands, but I was hooked. Because there's just so much good kinds of music, and you don't end up listening to it because of be it peer pressure or your own elitism or your own hipsterness or whatever it is. And it just didn't kind of go anywhere from there. So for me, it was important to kind of bring all of that forms of music together, and the brands just wouldn't get it. They just wouldn't know why Demonic Resurrection and Asian Dub Foundation and Indian Ocean were playing the same event, festival, right? It was really odd for them. But I found a sucker in Bacardi at that point of time who are some of my closest friends, and I think we were blessed because they literally had the best team at that point of time who were all a bunch of lunatics and who so we went and managed to sell one of the stages to one of the brands. He got into it so much, he went and sold the other stage within his own company to another brand. So first we had Aristov come in, and then Bacardi came in, and then the marketing head just said, we'll just sponsor the festival. They were just tired of it. It was a very minuscule amount at that point, but they really kind of stuck by it, and that happened. The third thing, which I thought would be the easiest, which is I thought, if you build it, they will come, sort of a thing. And nobody came. It was 1,500 people the first year. We thought at least 4,000-5,000 people show up. So it was a disaster in that sense. And in what was a great marketing move, I think went up on stage on the first day, on the second day of the festival, and we gave everybody another free wristband to go bring their friends.
Oh, I remember this.
Made a big speech. Yeah. People thought we were being all generous. We just wanted more people in, to be honest. And they all turned up with their friends, and there was a lot of people. There were about 4,000-5,000 people in the third day. And, it just kind of grew from there. And the only thing that went completely the other way in the next year was, we thought 1,500 people would go to 3,000, 4,000, but next year we had 8,000 people. So that word of mouth is what kind of really built it from.
It's one of those classic two-sided markets. So you need more people if you want to get more people. So you have to. So that was actually very, very smart thing that you did. You actually stepped out and got more people. So
it's just one of the good things that's happened with me in NH7. It's helped me personally break through a lot of my own kind of elitism in that sense of how things should be, who should come to a festival, who do I want to hang out with, what kind of artist should really kind of play. So I think now, for example, we want the festival to grow bigger and bigger and have more people in, but maybe in the second, third year I didn't think like that. I thought, the festival should be only 8,000-10,000 people. Except niche, I realized it should be niche and it should be this. I mean, that's the biggest bunch of bullshit I kind of fed myself at that point. But luckily I've kind of liberated my own head out of that space. And now we're very clear about the direction that we kind of really want to go in.
So which brings me to the next question. How do you figure out which artists play at the Weekender?
We always start with friends and family. In our cases, in the first couple of years especially, it was a lot of people in our own roster. People that I knew really well, and guys like Subir and Parikrama and all of that. So who did one of the sweetest things, because when the first year when we lost a lot of money, he actually called back and offered to return all the money. So that's why Parikrama, they're just generally legends in nature. But it's we kind of really look at different kinds of music because the stages have a particular sound. Then we kind of really figure out the Indian headliners first in terms of who it should be. There's a huge focus on new acts. One of the things that people don't realize is almost consistently in the last 3 years especially, 60% of, let's say, Pune, the lineup is absolutely new. 60% of the acts are playing for the first time. But people always just look at the headliner names and then they'll feel, they've played before. But we actually work very hard on those 60% of the names. In terms of the international headliners, we've tried everything to know what works and what doesn't. Like metal, for example, that's something that I was pretty keen on because, we were all, the programming team were like a bunch of metalheads as well. But we booked some really big acts and then you'd see 1,000 people turn up and then you realize that this just doesn't work. And parallelly there were other metal festivals happening which would just get such a terrible turnout, and you realize that audience is just gone, and you have to just accept it, not be in denial that audience kind of still exists. So we kind of moved on from that. There's this whole revelation of, the whole post-rock, prog rock sort of a thing that kind of really works. I have no idea why, but it has its own audience. So we always look for a cult act as a headliner. That's been one of the key things in terms of the kind of acts that we'll kind of really look at.
Something like we had Mogwai last year.
Steven Wilson this year. So I think that's the kind of acts that we really look at. The biggest challenge is to find multiple international acts available on the same weekend to come to India. It's a huge challenge. So for every 3 bands we book, we possibly send out about 100 offers.
Okay.
And out of that, we then figure out which are the 3-4 ones that we really need. Then we have a lot of international acts, which are just great acts. Be it Sean Kuti or Buraka Som Sistema and loads of other bands that we kind of booked, which people may not know about, but they're great festival acts. And once people see them at the festival, experience them, it kind of works. So it's a mix of a lot of that, but there's a bit of art and a bit of mathematics to be honest. So we balance it with how many tickets we need to sell and what kind of experience you kind of really want to provide. And sometimes you just do things like 2 acts that I've just done because I personally wanted to do. One was Amit Trivedi and second was Rahman.
Okay.
Because Rahman was somebody in my head, 10th year of NH7, we should be big enough that Rahman would play. Happened much sooner, so I can't complain. Amit, I was a huge fan of, and the fact that he had never played live before. And he was the kind of guy that even people in the scene would kind of really listen to this one guy because he was making some incredible music. So those are the kind of stuff you just do because when you run a festival, that's some occupational perks you get is you get to book acts that you really want to see. And there's a bunch of acts that we booked just because you know them or I want to bring them down sort of a thing.
Sure. Shall we take a little break now, Naren? Yeah. Okay. And we'll be right back with part 2 of this.
There's more awesome stuff to come.
Over 47% of online users in India have experienced harassment at some point. So if it's 2 of us inside this recording studio, chances are pretty high that one of us has faced abuse at some point. How do we tackle this? What do we need to do better? Come, let's learn together. Join me on Akanksha Against Harassment at IVM Podcasts every Thursday. Let's learn how to make online a safe place together.
And we are back. So we have been having this fascinating conversation with Vijay Nair of Weekender.
Only much louder, which
Only
runs
much louder,
the Weekender, Naren, to correct you.
Make it correct, yeah. And I was very, very sort of afraid that I will be opening my mouth and displaying my ignorance like I did just now.
That's okay.
But somehow it doesn't feel that awful because I've been learning a lot of things, and Vijay has been telling us a lot of it.
Yeah. So Vijay,
it's fine when you start with Estoned, you can't go further than that. That's fine. You're doing all right.
But seriously, how was they don't speak? Do they speak English in Estonia? No, I don't. I'm guessing not. No. Some really weird language and Russian.
We managed though. I think it wasn't that hard because whatever we needed to get done in Estonia, we got done.
It reminds me of Elbonia from the Dilbert comics. International festivals versus Indian festivals. Where do you think the international festivals score, apart from the fact that people probably know the music a lot more? Where are the Indian audiences rather? Where does the education need to happen? Where do we need to get these crowds? I mean, what is it going to take to get 400,000 people to come to a festival?
I know you could do Visarjan inside the festival. Maybe they'll all kind of turn up, or you could just at this point of time put up 20 ATMs and they could all turn up. So
this is true actually.
Many ways to do it. That's going to be the tagline this year, right? I mean, it's going to be 5 stages, 50 artists, 3 ATMs sort of thing. Yeah. There's a long way to go. I think the world's biggest festivals, if you look at it, there is literally in terms of attendance, there's one festival in Poland which is free, so I'm keeping that aside, which gets about 500,000 people.
Sure.
But then there's Glastonbury, which gets about, I want to say 140, 50, 60, 70 maybe. EDC, which is about 140, 50,000 people. Coachella, which gets about 80 to 90,000 over the weekend. So the world's biggest festival, none of them has really crossed a 200,000 sort of a number. So it's not that these festivals are that big. The first ones to possibly do that would be, without doubt, like anything else, India or China.
Sure.
Just because there is enough people
Population.
out there. And trivia is this year, all NH7s combined, this year will cross about 100,000 unique people who've been to the festival.
Wow.
So that's so many people who kind of sampled the festival at some level. Now it's just about scaling it up when everybody would land up together.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we don't have the infrastructure right now to do something like that. But it's a matter of time. We'll figure it out. But I think they have a history of 50, 60 years of music festivals. We have a history of maybe 8, 9 years. So I think that itself is going to... No, it's not bad at all. I think it will start. What happens is that when I walk into a room, like this. Let's say there's 100 people who I know all would love to be at NH7. Not more than 15 of them would have actually been at the festival. A lot of the people still just don't make the effort. And they're not really that into music, to be honest. They would love it if they were there. They just don't know what that entire experience and everything else is, and then the effort of buying a ticket and going somewhere else, and so that level of enthusiasm doesn't kind of really exist. As people, we don't really do many things outdoor. That's another thing. And that's because of the way things are, just traffic and getting out, and everything is something that you need to really plan.
It's a hassle. You need to go to another city, book a hotel.
That's right. So you need enthusiastic friends. So every group that comes to NH7 is usually because there's one super enthusiastic person who brings everybody else in, right? So I think it's not an education thing. It will just change. But lots of things have changed. The fact that people buy tickets, people buy tickets early, people buy tickets online. All of this are just huge cultural changes that have happened. From 10% of my tickets selling online to now almost 90% selling online before the festival. There's a huge difference, which kind of also shows the commitment in that sense.
So do you think the way technology has changed the way people consume entertainment, like YouTube, it has exposed many more people to genres of music that they are more likely to find in festivals like NH7 than before? Is that a factor in its increasing popularity?
Absolutely. I think in every ways, first of all, it's helped us market our festivals much better. So it helps us just purely from that point of view. Second, people are discovering, even if you bring a really niche artist, it's so easy to push them to 10,000 people because you need to just push that link out and people will go see it. The sampling of music has become so much easier. So I think from a technology point of view, I mean, there's two. One is just on that part of it, but just the technology that is needed behind the festival has improved so much, which is kind of really interesting for anybody who's interested in production from that point of view, which really helps us. The fact that you have 5 stages with sound not bleeding from one to the other, you have incredible sound systems that have kind of come in, how fast the rigging can happen. I think technology on both sides has helped us, be it back-end technology or front-end from a consumer point of view, but it's one of the reasons why it's become easy to do festivals than ever before.
Also, I know that you had a more than expected turnout at the NH7 in Shillong, and none of you had really expected because you wouldn't know. So there are a lot of things about the listener, the Indian listener, that you don't know about. What do you conjecture as the new horizon? Northeast was one. What do you think about the cow belt? Where most of us say, okay, cow belt mein nahi chalega. But do you think there is chance?
Which is actually related to the question which I was about to ask. How do you decide the cities that you're going to go to? Obviously, Pune is now has always been the flagship. But NH7 has been to some cities before, it's dropped them. Now Shillong has become sort of established. So how do you decide which cities to go to? This year, there were express editions which were one-day concerts in 5 cities across the country. So how do you decide which cities to go to?
It's no science, just gut purely in terms of Bombay, Bangalore, Delhi involved the no-brainers. But the fact that I posted Shillong outsold Bangalore, Delhi, Calcutta tickets combined. That's the reason we took a punt and dropped 3 and just went after Shillong, because we did it the first year. I just got a sense of this is going to be big. You could just feel the energy at some point.
The energy, the enthusiasm.
This really works. And then if you look at data, then it makes sense. I mean, I'm a big believer in data, and then you kind of just marry it with gut, and somewhere your decision will be somewhere in between. You have 7 states, loads of young people, all of them into music, and not one music festival. So it was just a no-brainer that you needed to do it, except it's extremely hard to produce a festival there. Nobody was willing to take that effort, and we took that effort, and we gave them the same experience. We didn't do a smaller version because it's the Northeast or whatever it would be. And people spend money. People bought tickets. Everybody told us it's not going to happen. People don't buy. That I've got in every city, by the way. But in every city, those kind of stereotypes get broken. So you sometimes just go by gut, and things like we did Pondicherry and Mysore, and so you kind of look at markets, and we just want to do small towns, and these are non-ticketed ones, but and which is invite only. But the idea is we're just trying to get a sense of what kind of audience exists. And the fact is, I think of all the festivals that exist, NH7 is the only one that can go. It can be in Kerala, it can be in Rajasthan, we'll still get 10,000 people. Largely because the diversity of music really works. If I go to Kerala, the duet stage would change automatically to what the local people might like. The rock stage can still remain rock stage with a lot of local acts. So I think it's very flexible from that point of view. So now I think we're geared to go to any other place, except genuinely I have no interest in kind of doing 20, 30 different versions. What I personally always wanted to do is, all these editions were marketing tools for us for something that we'll do 5 to 10 years from now, which is one festival with 200,000 people. So this was more... the editions that we're doing in City were more evangelical in nature. The idea was to kind of go tell people what a festival is, because one of the biggest assumptions that we made was people would know what a festival is, and they don't. Why should they know? Till I went to Glastonbury, I didn't know what it was. So when you come, the concept that there is 4 stages, 5 stages, people are playing at the same time, there's no fights, there's nothing. It's just, you need to kind of be there to understand how that entire thing really works. I think, but Shillong and Pune will definitely possibly remain as the 2 main centers.
Vijay, if I could ask, what is the process by which Weekender is actually set up? So you told us about how the artists are, what the selection, etc. is. How does it go from that? How does it go from an Excel file all the way to the final production?
I think we've got it down. OML now functions like an assembly line of producing festivals in that sense. So we've got it down to a science. But it is unbelievable amount of detailing, and I think
I can well understand, because anything in that chain breaks, the whole thing is a disaster.
There's a huge cascading effect of everything. I mean, if one band arrives for sound check 25 minutes late, that actually means the entire schedule of the day, not just sound check,
but
because,
even the acts,
we have changeover stages. So if one band is late, the other stage is late, and then it just goes on and on and on and on. So every single thing we kind of get at this. I think the most important thing is we have an incredibly well-trained crew. Everybody. Also, the other thing about why we've kind of run really good festivals is we have an extremely calm crew as well. You don't really kind of see people going ape shit and nuts, which is what really happens a lot of the time on ground. We work with the best suppliers and vendors, so that takes away a lot of the things. So we pay a little more, but we get the best people in, so that takes away a lot of the pain and hassle. And we have consistency. We work with the same crew, same vendors, same outsourced guys, time after time, so everybody kind of really knows what they do. So, but the thing is, I am obsessed as much as possible with the customer experience part of it. So when you enter, I'll be very keen on what fabric is used for the wristband. How will it feel in your hand for 3 to 4 days? How does it feel after a couple of showers? Whatever, because that's what the people have to live with. And if that's bad, it actually annoys you, and that becomes an irritant for you for 4 days. So from something as simple as that to how the sound would be, how that's designed, with people who come and curate food, to bazaar, to everything else. So every little thing we're very specific about. But one of the ways we kind of did it was very simple. I actually wrote down a list of everything that used to annoy me at concerts, and we just fixed each one of them.
Oh wow! Okay.
From as a manager, as an artist, we kind of wrote that, and from a consumer point of view, simple things like a lot of the time, concert security acts like airport security. They take away things like you might have a bottle of water, but they just take that away and throw it. But there's no logic to kind of really do that when you're coming for a day festival.
Sure.
So if it's a sealed bottle, we'll let it in, or cigarettes, or something else, or deodorants, or condoms for that matter, or whatever it would be. But it was just a thing that happened till we had to fix it and retrain our security to do that. Just basically managing the crowd flow. Just imagining how will the crowd move from one stage to another. Accordingly programming what artists will play so that we balance the audience at any point of time. So every single thing that happens has a lot of detailing, except now we have a crew which all knows what they're doing. So 90% of the stuff, I used to go 7 days before. Now I go the day before or the morning of the show at best, and that's how it happens. Now in Pune, for example, this year it's a new venue, and a huge challenge is we don't really have ready-made venues. So here we are transplanting about 400,000 square feet of grass. That's literally, so we're growing grass off-site. Then you cut it, and there's an entire transplantation process which takes about 25 days. Then you literally, from putting the right fertilizers to right texture, so then we choose the grass, what kind of grass would feel good and what it will be. And so when you kind of see the festival ground, and if you see what it was 25 days before, it will be completely different. But we pay attention to all of those little details to make sure.
Do you follow a checklist or something?
And trust me, Naren, when usually in music festivals, when they say this is the grass to choose, it has a totally different meaning normally, you are saying.
Is this the counter to Estonia and the grass is... okay. All right, no problem if that's again... So you were saying.
Yeah, so, in my experience, when we're doing something complex or complicated, like I run a factory, and sometimes, especially when we are sending out a number of components in a export consignment, you really need to have a guy sitting with a checklist to make sure nothing, because humans are humans, right? Everyone. So do you feel the need to do that, or do you just sort of delegate it to teams and compartmentalize it and have them do everything?
It's a mix of that. It's very well delegated and compartmentalized in that sense, and each one have their own checklist. We also get better every year. So we kind of figure out what are the things we shouldn't have done, what should we kind of really fix. Now debriefings have become a huge part of the process after every festival.
So you have a review after, you basically lick your wounds. Yeah.
So for example, we used to waste a lot of time putting up signage till we realized 50% of our signage was useless. It's just legacy that we did it the year before, so we should do it again. So now we combine a lot of that, so that effort becomes lesser. We know exactly the problem that our vendors will come up with, because a lot of them will turn up late, a lot of them will do this, and that means the fencing has to, a lot of the little things. So we basically keep fixing processes more and more. I think we're about 80% there in terms of how well it needs to be. We're at a point now we are introducing things. For example, since the last 3 years now, including this year now, we are the only festival which has complete, it is disabled access, it is special access as well for anybody who's coming in wheelchairs
awesome,
or any kind of disability as well. And I make 2 points for it. One, I think every festival should do it. Second, even if the amount that it needs to just make sure that happens is minuscule, is 0.1% of a budget of the entire festival. But a lot of people just don't take that effort, but it opens up suddenly a whole new audience, and there's millions of people who would possibly want to who have never kind of really been out, because they just feel that a public space is not going to be accessible. So from that to, for example, now we're just trying to get better and better at one of the issues that we have as the festival grows bigger is safety of women. And I don't mean in a larger sense in terms of whether they'll get, it's just regular stuff in terms of from commons being passed to just guys, basically a group of guys will go and start dancing around somebody.
A lot of this is cultural stuff.
It's cultural, but I think a lot of it automatically fixes itself at the festival because of the vibe. But when the festival grows bigger, like this time in Shillong, we stopped the concert for 5 minutes till we just pulled people out and threw them out, and we just stopped it till that would happen. But
and that too when Farhan Akhtar was playing.
Yeah, so we do that because we're very clear about in terms of we don't worry about reputation and all of that stuff. I mean, what needs to be fixed needs to be fixed. So you kind of just get that done. But now we're getting in a place where now we're kind of premiering a video that we've made for all our events now, which is almost like a flight safety video except for festivals, because nobody in festival knows in case there's a fire, where do you get out from?
Yes.
Or what are you supposed to do? Or if you find somebody who's drunk, you don't know really what to do and how to help them. So now we're trying to kind of make stuff, or even one focused towards women, just telling them what should they do in case they're harassed. Because a lot of the time that happens at a public space. Where would they be most
likely to find help?
Where should they, where would they find help? What are their options? What it should be? Which is an uncomfortable moment in a music festival, but that's only for few people. But I think it's an important one to kind of really do. It's the same reason like why you need to be told how to use an oxygen, how a flight prepares you before it takes off on what you should do when it's going to crash. But it's an important thing to kind of do. Right?
Because you won't have time when it actually happens.
Absolutely. So I think it's important. So from our security to, we have also a fiercely loyal team that travels with us. I mean, our security team, for example, are all freelancers, all kids from Mohammed Ali Road who live with literally live with us during the festival. They'll just turn up at every NH7 and they know how to handle what needs to be done, all of these things.
It's really underrated, this entire camaraderie and loyalty.
Yeah, it's very important because everybody now, nobody kind of bothers with a lot of that stuff, right? In terms of it's just when different teams are just good at what they're supposed to do, then there's no confusion of too many people trying to do the same thing. So the marketing and ticketing team will just work independently. The curation, the food and bazaar team work separately. Everybody does their own thing now. And as in the next 1 or 2 years, we're just trying to automate a lot of those processes and get that in place. We're definitely not where I would want it to be yet. Where the dream is that we'll be ready with every single thing 24 hours even before sound check starts, and everything is kind of redone. But I think we are eventually kind of getting there.
Vijay, lastly, I'll ask you a difficult question. Out of the 6, now into its 7th year, what has been your favorite moment from a Weekender?
Favorite moment would be, I think it would still be second year when we had this stage just set up for the finale. We had a giant wheel as a background, and people didn't know what it was doing there, and everything shut down, and all the audiences came there, and we basically did the first time we did the NH7 All-Stars. So we had all of these artists who played across, and it was such a last minute thing because all the songs were getting decided backstage half an hour before. So Imogen Heap came and did Blur, or Vishwesh came and did I think a mix of Ice Ice Baby and Baba Cycle, and he did some. Everybody was doing their own thing, and our point was we basically wanted to close the festival of original music with covers. We were just kind of being silly about it. So I just wanted to do that for there was no real reason to kind of do that, but we put that together, and I definitely remember kind of being at the sound console that time and just surrounded by people because everybody was at the same spot, and that's quite an overwhelming thing. And I think that kind of moment happens with quite a few acts, but I think that was the first time I definitely realized that we're on to something magical.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Vijay, for spending time with us over here. If you guys are listening to this and you have been inspired to come to the festival, no matter which city you're in, especially you guys down there in Chennai, you find your tickets on insider.in, head over to the festival, have a great time over there. And if you like this little podcast that we have, then hit subscribe on iTunes and Pocket Cast on Android.
Yeah, and see you at one of the
NH7s very soon. Vijay, thanks again for coming on.
Thanks, thank you so much.
And good luck for the Weekender, and here's to a great festival season.
Thank you. I'll see you guys there.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is your captain speaking. Sorry to say, but there's been a slight delay due to the apocalypse having suddenly begun. As you can see, there's death, destruction, and chaos taking place all around us. But don't you worry, food and drinks will be served shortly, and I would recommend checking out IVM Podcasts to catch some of your favorite Indian podcasts. We'll keep you going till this whole thing blows over. Thank you.